Welcome back to the Emily Show. Even though we are still in the middle of live Karen Read coverage, gavel to gavel, I still have some other stories I really want to talk to you about this week. First, we just need to catch up on everything going on ahead of the Alec Baldwin Rust trial. Real quickly, Alec Baldwin's lawyers have responded to the state's request to grant Hannah Gutierrez Reed use immunity so she can testify against Alec Baldwin. So we're going to look at that real quick. And then a lot of you have asked me about, and I also found myself a bit fascinated with this Baby Reindeer Netflix lawsuit. So if you have not seen Baby Reindeer yet, I hope that I won't be spoiling it by going over the lawsuit, but it is a first look for me, so there might be some spoilers in there. And if you have seen Baby Reindeer and are curious why the woman portrayed in this series would A, raise her hand and identify herself, and B, be suing Netflix, but not suing the author of Baby Reindeer, well, hopefully this lawsuit answers your questions. That's what we're talking about today. And don't worry, we're going to get into all of it. So, law nerds, it's podcast time. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Emily Show. I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst and big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years. I'm a former prosecutor, and I break down the legal side of pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. We should just get into it. Let's go. Life can be unexpected, and one of the things you don't want to have to worry about is your life insurance. And that can be whether you are transitioning careers, transitioning jobs, or getting ready for retirement. You need to know that your life insurance is handled so that you have a peace of mind for your loved ones. With today's sponsor, Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare America's top insurers in just a few clicks. It's what they are made for so that you can go through the process easily, and they work for you, not the insurance company. So there's no reason to recommend one insurer over the other. It's no wonder that they have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. But hopefully, finding the right life insurance with Policygenius will help give you a peace of mind. This is a good reminder that all you need to do is head to policygenius.com to get your free life insurance quotes. Head to policygenius.com or use the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see what best fits your needs. Thank you for sponsoring today's episode, Policygenius. Let's get back to it. For those of you anticipating the July trial of Alec Baldwin in New Mexico, as I said months ago, there was going to be a ton of litigation leading up to this trial. Remember, Baldwin was reindicted and did not waive time for trial. So if it feels like we are rapidly approaching a trial the way that it did in Murdaugh, it's because we are still under that original trial timeline to push this thing to trial. And the prosecution was in trial with Hannah Gutierrez. So as we are getting closer now to the Baldwin trial next month, the litigation is ramping up and it's not going to slow down. There are multiple hearing dates. I will be covering those hearings when I can, either on the podcast or on YouTube. If you want to stay in the loop, Law Nerd app, iOS and Android is the best way to do it, because I'm going to be doing gavel to gavel trial coverage of Baldwin in July as well, but I'm going to be covering the litigation running up to it. So we're going to know the ins and outs of this case very well by the time it gets to trial. And one of those ins and outs right now is the state wanting to grant use immunity to Hannah Gutierrez so that she can testify, well, against Baldwin, really. And with that, we heard about this first on stage recently from Hannah Gutierrez's lawyer, Jason Bowles, who is quite chatty. So Jason Bowles said that the state was trying to force Hannah to testify what use immunity means. And I broke this down more in a previous episode of the Emily Show, but it means that the prosecution cannot use what Hannah Gutierrez says testifying against her, either if her appeal is successful and she gets a new trial, or to investigate other crimes. It is a limited immunity so that anything she says under oath in trial cannot be used against her. But It carves out an exception that if she commits perjury, she can, of course, be prosecuted for that. So, of course, Baldwin's attorneys have responded. We knew they were going to because we knew this was an opposed motion, and there is a hearing date already set in this. And that is set for Friday, June 21st. You know, Friday, June 21st is a half day in the Karen Read trial. Maybe we will be able to get to this hearing the day it happens, albeit a little bit late, but maybe we'll be able to sneak in a stream on this because I am very curious about this hearing. Maybe we will. Stay tuned in the app. Maybe we will. Emily, are you doing your calendaring in the middle of recording a podcast? Sure, why not? ADHD, we're multitasking, friends. Look, we're all law nerds here. Let's get into what the defense is saying about this grant of use immunity, because as you can imagine, Baldwin's attorneys are not thrilled. I really want to know how they feel about his reality show, but I digress. This is the defense motion filed June 6th at 5:28 p.m. local time in New Mexico, which is Mountain Daylight Time, I think is what we're on now. Here's their preliminary statement. The state's late filed, always a dig. We always start with a dig. The state's late filed motion for use immunity to secure live testimony from Hannah Gutierrez Reed should be denied. The testimony the state purports to seek is contained in Gutierrez Reed's prior statements the state has had for years. Remember when I said that I wondered if the defense was going to say, fine, if you don't want us to use specific excerpts, or if the court would go this route, just use the entire video? I mean, maybe that's the solution. Just use the entirety of her police interviews. I think that the state wants to be able to ask her more about Baldwin based on her jail calls. Because if I was the state, I would look at those jail calls where she's just like, Baldwin should be in jail. And I'd be like, well, I mean, if she testifies, I wonder what she would say. Because in her interviews, she doesn't talk about Baldwin as much because that wasn't the focus. She talks about him some, but I wonder if they want to focus her comments more. The testimony the state purports to seek is contained in Gutierrez Reed's prior statements the state has had for years. If the state felt it needed to grant use immunity in this matter, it should have filed this motion when it first learned Gutierrez Reed intended to assert her Fifth Amendment privilege. And remember, the reason she has a Fifth Amendment privilege is because she still has a pending appeal. So if that appeal is successful and she is granted a new trial, she can't be forced to testify in a way that could be used against her, which is why use immunity would need to be granted. It goes on to say the state did not do so, and all parties continued to prepare for trial on the understanding that Gutierrez Reed would be unavailable at trial, because once you plead the Fifth, you become unavailable. The late addition of Gutierrez Reed to the state's witness list to provide open-ended, unspecified testimony at the state is unjustified and prejudicial. The motion should be denied. This motion might be granted, though. They go on and give the background that we've heard many times before. The argument is, quote, the state's belated request that the court grant use immunity for Gutierrez Reed's testimony at trial and order her to testify at trial, as well as its untimely addition of Gutierrez Reed to its sixth witness list. To be fair, the state's witness list has always encompassed the defense witness list, and she's been on the defense witness list. So I don't know if it's a technical late addition to the witness list. They were on notice. But they say it comes months after Gutierrez Reed was disclosed on defendant's witness list. Oh, Emily, keep reading. Weeks after Gutierrez Reed's entirely non-substantive pretrial interview was completed, so she gave an interview with defense, and there is an agreement between her defense attorneys and Baldwin's defense attorneys to work together well after the deadline for adding witnesses and just weeks before trial is set to begin. There can be no good cause for the state's untimely request. The state has known about Gutierrez Reed's involvement in this case since 2021, has known she was on the defense witness list since mid-April, and has known that she intended to assert her Fifth Amendment privilege since early May. If the state wished to secure live and unfettered testimony from Gutierrez Reed despite her ongoing appeal of her criminal conviction, something the state has known about since March, when she was convicted, it should have made this request well in advance to allow the parties a fair opportunity to explore her testimony. And I imagine what the court will say is, you have time. But you have time. The defense goes on to argue, quote, allowing the state to use immunity at this late juncture to introduce a previously unavailable witness with hundreds of previously undisclosed statements. Hundreds? Hundreds of statements? Really? How do you, are those her jail calls? Would her jail calls be the previously undisclosed statements? And if they're previously undisclosed, have they been disclosed now? I have questions. It goes on to say after the deadline for witness disclosure has passed without time to conduct proper pretrial interviews and just weeks before a complex trial would prejudice the defense's due process rights. They go on to say, indeed, it's hard to imagine how the state would claim that this belated disclosure and request is not prejudicial when it previously asserted that it was prejudiced by the defendant's timely witness disclosures, characterizing those disclosures as a calculated game of sandbagging with less than 30 days remaining to conduct pretrial witness interviews. And the defense was choosing to lie in wait because the state would not have an adequate opportunity to conduct interviews and investigate the witnesses with an entire month remaining of the pretrial interview period. That period, of course, has now passed entirely, such that the defendant would have no ability to investigate the additional statements, favorable or not, that Gutierrez might make at this late juncture. It goes on to say, in a footnote, because the hearing of the issue is scheduled for June 21st, 2024, the defendant will not be able to prepare for Gutierrez-Reed's unknown testimony until 2 weeks before trial at most, if the state's motion is granted. All the state prosecutors who get a trial the morning that the jury's being selected are laughing loudly. 2 weeks to prepare? That's lovely. It goes on to say here a continuance is not required or sought because the state has not made any specific showing as to why Gutierrez-Reed's live testimony at trial is, quote, necessary under Rule 5-116 of the NMRA. The state offers no explanation as to how it contends that, quote, the defendant's opposition to this motion is a clear indicator that the defendant intends that only exculpatory testimony from Ms. Gutierrez be presented to the jury. The parties have anticipated since at least May 19th that Gutierrez would be unavailable to testify. The state has offered no justification for why, at this late stage, it's necessary for the court to grant its request for use immunity. So that is the defense's motion opposing the state's request that the court grant use immunity and force Hannah Gutierrez to testify at Baldwin's trial. It's interesting to me because in other jurisdictions, this is within the realm of the prosecutor. They can grant use immunity if they want to. This still might be an untimely disclosure of witness, but she was on the defense witness list, even if they were anticipating she'd plead the fifth, because then she'd be an unavailable witness and they'd get to use her prior recorded statements. And that is helpful to them, which I would imagine is exactly what they want to do. So is Hannah Gutierrez going to throw a wrench in this whole trial? And are these attorneys going to get their coffee taken away by Judge Summer? Because it seems that these attorneys are just at each other. We're going to get to this level of hyperbole as unhelpful, but these attorneys have no love lost. And clearly the defense has more attorneys to throw things at the prosecution. The prosecution team is two. By the time we get to trial, they are going to be tired, and I imagine we're going to see some of that now well-known Carrie Morrissey snark as we get into court and hearings on these motions. It's going to be busy. So stay tuned because Baldwin goes to trial in July, and that's going to be a much shorter trial than the Karen Reed trial that is now in week 7 of millions, it seems. So if you're ready for another live trial, Baldwin in July is where it's at. Let's talk about Netflix and Baby Reindeer. I have not had a ton of opportunity to watch television while covering the Karen Reed trial, gavel to gavel every day. I haven't even caught up on Bridgerton, mostly because A, there's not time to watch Bridgerton when my children aren't home because summer, and B, once I start watching Bridgerton, I'm not going to stop watching Bridgerton until I have seen all of it. So when I saw this lawsuit, I was like, okay, here's the thing. It's another Netflix lawsuit. I've covered lots of other Netflix lawsuits. I'm interested in what this lawsuit is alleging, but to have full context, it just seems that maybe, just maybe, the best thing to do is to sit down and watch all 7 episodes of Baby Reindeer, of course. Also, not appropriate when kids are in the house. This is something to be watched at night. For those of you not familiar with Baby Reindeer, I'm going to try to not spoil it, but there will be an overview of the plot because A, if you're going to sit down and watch it, I think some of you would like to be aware. Here's the thing. Baby Reindeer is a fairly gritty look into the lead character's own exploration with being a sexual assault victim, and then a complex relationship with someone who he believes is his stalker. This person has now come forward, Fiona Harvey, and sued, saying that she was not, in fact, his stalker, and things in this series aren't true. But it is a very interesting exploration because the lead actor in this is the person who wrote the one-man show that this is based on. It is his recitation of his life, of what happened to him after a sexual assault, of how he tried to square his own behavior with the things that had happened to him. And it is kind of a no holds barred look at his life. It is not incredibly flattering to him. I think it would be tremendously difficult to evaluate oneself in the way that Baby Reindeer evaluates him. I think the takeaway is him introspectively looking at his own trauma and then the way that that informed how he interacted with the world. That was my takeaway from it, including the way he allowed or disallowed things in his life, where he struggled to set boundaries, where he struggled to maintain relationships. And at the end of it, a very real exploration of his own self-loathing after being assaulted. And that is raw. It is visceral, but I think it's important to put out there. It is definitely more pointed than just entertainment. But then we get to the question of, what about the people in the story who are portrayed in the story other than him? And again, Baby Reindeer is not light. It is gritty. I don't think that makes it less important. I just think you need to be in the right frame of mind if you're going to sit down and watch it, because it is not easy. He is a stand-up comedian who wrote a one-man show and performed it before this became a Netflix series. And the amount of introspection it would take to write about yourself and to share the things that had happened to you is A, tremendously courageous, but B, kind of fascinating to me to be able to really take such a raw look. Not many can do that. And for that, I think it is very worthwhile. But this is where we bump up against what happens to the other people in the story. The beginning of Baby Reindeer on the screen in text says, "This is a true story." It doesn't say this is based on a true story. It doesn't say this is inspired by a true story. It says this is a true story, and that's going to come into play in this lawsuit. This is becoming common territory for Netflix. By we, I mean us law nerds, have talked about the Queen's Gambit lawsuit. I thought the Queen's Gambit was fascinating. I covered the Queen's Gambit lawsuit that was ultimately settled. And by settled, I mean it seemed to be a mutual walkaway because it was dismissed with prejudice, noting that each party bared their own legal cost. There are a plethora of Tiger King lawsuits. There is the Carole Baskin suit. There's a copyright suit. There's a separate Carole Baskin defamation suit. Like, there is an entire Marvel universe of lawsuits about Tiger King. The copyright suit actually is up at the 10th Circuit. And part of the argument at the 10th Circuit in the Tiger King copyright lawsuit, someone's alleging that Netflix took some of their content from YouTube and didn't ask them. So weird of Netflix to do that. Who would have guessed? Oh, wait. But it's up at the 10th Circuit, and the ruling that they're using to argue Tiger King is the Jack Daniels Bad Spaniels ruling. And we talked about the Jack Daniels Bad Spaniels Supreme Court ruling as it looks at fair use. So the Jack Daniels Bad Spaniels Supreme Court ruling is now coming up in the circuit courts as they're trying to square what is fair use, what's not fair use, and where the boundaries are. Then Netflix just settled the Central Park 5 defamation case as well. So Netflix is not unfamiliar with lawsuits centered around their content. But this one's interesting in that both the comedian and the purported real life woman from the show. Her character's name was Martha. She has identified herself as Fiona Harvey and said, this is based on me, sort of. We're going to talk about that too. They are Scottish. The author, comedian, is not sued. Only Netflix is sued, and they are being sued in the Central District of California, which is federal court. So let's take a look at this lawsuit. Hopefully this will not spoil Baby Reindeer if you want to watch it any more than my overview has already kind of spoiled it. Apologies. Lawsuits are spoilers. We learned that during Depp Heard when they were spoiling Aquaman 2. So I should just say spoilers, sweetie, spoilers. All right. Fiona Harvey versus Netflix. And Fiona Harvey, again, came forward and said, this is based on me and it's not true. She has gone on numerous media interviews. She has interviewed on Piers Morgan and others. I've watched some of those interviews, and it's very interesting to see, especially in the Piers Morgan interview that I think will actually come up in this lawsuit quite a bit, that at the beginning she says, no, none of this is true. I don't recognize myself at all. Well, if you don't recognize yourself at all, then will others recognize you to know that you're the subject of this? It's also interesting to me. I wonder if Baby Reindeer was made by Netflix or a different production company and then sold to Netflix. We'll see. The opening of the lawsuit starts with a quote, which we don't always see, but when we do, it just delights me. Just always, every single time. It starts with, this is a true story, Baby Reindeer, episode 1. For some of you asking to yourself, Emily, why is it called Baby Reindeer? It's disclosed in the last episode, so that I'm going to try not to spoil. I don't think it's in here. Preliminary statement. The above quote from the first episode of the Netflix series Baby Reindeer is the biggest lie in television history. The thing is, this is a defamation suit. So if it's not true, then how can you identify the person who it's supposedly about? This is a lie told by Netflix and the show's creator, Richard Gadd, out of greed and lust for fame. A lie designed to attract more viewers, get more attention, to make more money, and to viciously destroy the life of plaintiff Fiona Harvey, an innocent woman defamed by Netflix and Richard Gadd at a magnitude and scale without precedent. Just real quick, anybody want to name some defamation cases that have been bigger than this one in recent history? You let me know. This is an action by plaintiff Harvey against defendants Netflix, Inc. and Netflix Worldwide. Notice who's not a plaintiff. For defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, gross negligence, and violations of Harvey's right of publicity arising out of the brutal lies told about her in the television series Baby Reindeer. The lies that defendants told about Harvey to over 50 million people worldwide include that Harvey is a twice convicted stalker who was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and that Harvey sexually assaulted Gadd. Defendants told these lies and never stopped because it was a better story than the truth, and better stories made money. And Netflix, a multinational billion-dollar entertainment streaming company, did literally nothing to confirm the quote-unquote true story that Gadd told. That is, it never investigated whether Harvey was convicted of very serious misrepresentation of facts. It did nothing to understand the relationship between Gadd and Harvey, if any. Notice that they throw in if any. It did nothing to determine whether other facts, including an assault, the alleged stalking, or the conviction, was accurate. It did nothing to understand whether Gadd's production, which ruined Harvey, was accurate. That's interesting to put in a defamation suit, though. I'm just going to make a note here. Because if Gadd's production, and I don't know if they're talking about this one or the previous one-man show, if the previous one-man show ruined Harvey already, can it being put on Netflix do more damage? Or would she have needed to sue then? And because Netflix wasn't involved, she would have needed to sue not in the US, perhaps need to bring this lawsuit in England. So if the production refers back to the one-man show, then are we going to have a damages audience here? Or is she going to argue that calling her a convicted felon is defamation per se and damages don't matter? It's an interesting statement to put in. I imagine whenever we see Netflix file a response, that will probably come up, because if the production is the previous production, there might be an issue with the way that was written. As a result, it says of defendant's lies, defendant being Netflix, malfeasance and utter reckless misconduct, Harvey's life has been ruined. Simply, Netflix and GAD destroyed her reputation, her character, and her life. Well, if that isn't written so that the media can easily understand it, I don't know what is. It goes on to say the party's plaintiff is a resident of England. Harvey earned a degree of Bachelor of Laws from the University of Aberdeen in 1990, a diploma in legal practice from the University of Strathclyde in 1993, and was granted an entrance certificate to the Law Society of Scotland in 1997. In 2005, Harvey earned her graduate diploma in law from the University of Westminster. Defendant Netflix Inc. is a Delaware corporation. Netflix is the producer and distributor of content with over 260 million paid subscribers and a market cap of $283 billion. Netflix Inc. owns Netflix streaming platform that streamed Baby Reindeer. Netflix acquires licenses and produces content, including original programming, in order to offer our members unlimited viewing of our video entertainment, and that's from a Netflix 2024 report from their 10K. It's funny, they say at home in Los Angeles. It's an interesting way to put it. Netflix Inc. is a Los Angeles-based company. It lists out their properties. It lists out where the buildings are and what have you. Getting on from Netflix's business and business ownerships and all of their locations and how much money they're making and what their public filings are. It goes on to say on May 8th, 2024, Netflix and GAD hosted a 4-year consideration screening of Baby Reindeer at the Directors Guild of America Theater in Los Angeles in support of Netflix's submission of Baby Reindeer for consideration to be nominated for over a dozen Emmy Awards, including Best Limited Series, Best Actor, and Best Writing for GAD, and Best Supporting Actress Jessica Gunning, whose performance is chilling. The performances in this are excellent. The story is rough, but the performances, and by rough, I mean emotionally difficult, the performances are fantastic. On June 1st, 2024, Netflix and actress Jessica Gunning, who plays Martha and Baby Reindeer, hosted a special screening at FYSEE at Sunset Las Palmas Studios in Los Angeles. I have no idea. Somebody knows. It's too Hollywood for me. I don't know. They go on to say that there's personal jurisdiction over Netflix because they have a principal place of business in California, in Los Angeles, and that is why they brought the federal jurisdiction. Again, this is a international resident, someone who lives in England, choosing to sue. The plaintiff is allowed to choose to sue, choosing to sue Netflix where they are. They said Netflix actively promoted and screened Baby Reindeer throughout Hollywood for purposes of winning numerous categories at this year's 77th Emmy Awards to be hosted in Los Angeles on September 15th at the Peacock Theater. They then go on to talk about why venue in Los Angeles is proper, and then they start talking about Baby Reindeer. Baby Reindeer is a 7-episode limited television series about the quote-unquote true story of Richard Gadd, a failing comedian set in the year 2015. Gadd is the writer and creator of Baby Reindeer in addition to starring in it as, quote, Donnie, because he's not starring in it under his own name, right? Baby Reindeer is a worldwide phenomenon, premiered on Netflix on April 11th, 2024, and has since drawn over 56 million views through May 8th. I mean, does Mr. Beast just look at this and go, I mean, I have 56 million views on each episode I post. I don't know. The streaming numbers are so weird to me because YouTube world is so different. Either way, it is quite a lot of views. It has drawn over 56 million views through May 8th, making it Netflix's most popular content this year and on track to become the most streamed show on Netflix of all time. Really? Okay. Netflix stopped publicly releasing viewership of Baby Reindeer. That's a weird, just hanging sentence. The draw for the show is the representation made by the defendants that this is a true story. At the 1 minute 39 second mark of episode 1, this image appears on screen and it's typed in and says, "This is a true story." What I will say annoys me about all TV when they do this is when they type things on the screen and there's no voiceover, because often I am listening. Like my ADHD is like, why aren't you talking? And then I look up and I'm like, wait, I have to read. Damn it. It goes on to describe Richard Gadd as the writer and creator of the story, stars in it playing himself. Then it takes shots at him, which if you watch any of Fiona Harvey's interviews, she does frequently. And with that, it says, Gadd is a self-admitted crack, meth, and heroin user with a self-admitted history of masturbating to Harvey, following her home and spying on her through her window and lying to the police about his contacts with her. And that all comes directly from episodes of Baby Reindeer, and they have cited which episode and minute this happens at. Oh, God. They included a screenshot of the show where Gad is holding a picture of Martha in the show. That seems gratuitous in a lawsuit. Like, this has nothing to do with defamation. How does any of this have anything to do with defamation? Just what? This is a choice. Okay. It goes on to say Baby Reindeer tracks Gad's progress in a comedy competition while he works as a bartender at the pub The Hart in Camden, London. Martha, and that's in quotes, says to overcome the uninteresting true story of Gad's inability to advance professionally in the London comedy circuit, defendants fabricated a true story of a woman, Martha, that Gad meets at the pub to make Baby Reindeer more captivating. Just digs at him nonstop in this. I shouldn't be surprised looking at the lawsuit, seeing that when she went on and gave interviews, she called him a either sociopath or psychopath. I don't remember which directly, but picked one of the two, and then also said, well, we can't believe him. He's an admitted heroin user. In the show, I will say that during the period of time that he is using quite a bit of narcotics, he portrays a story that he is being groomed and then sexually assaulted while under the influence of drugs. It's interesting that is being used against him in this lawsuit. So we'll continue on. It goes on to say, according to defendants, the real, quote, Martha is a twice convicted criminal. She spent a total of 5 years in prison for stalking Gad and another woman. In addition, Martha stalked a policeman, sexually assaulted Gad in an alley, violently attacked him in a pub, and waited outside his home every day for up to 16 hours a day. It goes on to say the real Martha is reasonably understood by all viewers to have done all of these monstrous things because Netflix and Gad stated this was true. Hanging my curtains. Harvey is identified. It goes on to say a recurring joke throughout Baby Reindeer is the phrase, hang my curtains, as a euphemism for Gad having sex with Martha. For example, in episode 1, Gad's fellow bartenders ask Gad when he and Martha are going to shag. Gad responds that he does not believe in sex before marriage, to which Martha replies that she is marriage material and that all she needs is someone to hang her curtains. And then there's a screenshot with the closed caption showing all I need is for someone to hang my curtains. Gad narrates that hanging her curtains sounded vaguely sexual and responds to Martha by joking, I'll hang your curtains, to which the bar erupts in laughter. And a screenshot of that. There's more photos in this lawsuit than I had imagined. Later in episode 1, Martha, and all of these Marthas are in quotations, Martha sends Gad 80 emails per day, including this one stating, quote, my curtains are waiting for you. They are ready. Spelling corrected. And then another screenshot of the show. It says in an interview with GQ magazine, Gad claimed, quote, we've gone to such lengths to disguise Harvey that I doubt she would recognize herself in the show. And Harvey is in parentheses because it said to disguise Martha in the actual interview, but they modified it. It goes on to say, in real life, this tweet from Fiona Harvey 2014 to Mr. Richard Gad in 2014 was publicly searchable on X when Baby Reindeer was released in April 2024 and easily found. And it's from the Fiona Harvey 2014 account from September 23rd, 2014. And it says, at Mr. Richard Gad, my curtains need hung badly. So it seems that the internet very quickly found her Twitter account based on that tweet. It says within days after release of Baby Reindeer on April 11th, 2024, members of the public identified Fiona Harvey as Martha. Total strangers began to message Harvey on Facebook and call her. The messages below are just some of the Facebook users with names beginning with the letter A. And then it has a whole lot of, it looks like cut and pasted statements. It said things like, did you stalk Richard? Are you a stalker? Are you on Netflix? Are you the stalker? You're insane. Are you Martha Scott? Baby Reindeer? Can I hang your curtains? Are you the real Martha from Baby Reindeer? Hey, Martha. Psycho stalker? Hello, Reindeer. Are you Martha? Hey, Martha. Have you been convicted of harassment and stalking on Richard Gad? Are you a crazy stalker? Hi, sorry, did you sexually harass and stalk Richard Gadd? Amongst other things. It goes on to say popular internet forums such as Reddit and TikTok had thousands of users identifying and discussing Harvey as the real quote unquote Martha. The identification of Harvey as Martha was easy and took a matter of days as Harvey's identity was completely undisguised. Because of the joke? Maybe? In Baby Reindeer, Martha is a Scottish lawyer living in London, 20 years older than Gadd, and was accused of stalking a barrister in a newspaper article who communicated with him on social media. Like Martha, Harvey is a Scottish lawyer living in London, 20 years older than Gadd, was accused of stalking a lawyer in a newspaper article, and who bears an uncanny resemblance to Martha. Further, Martha's accent, manner of speaking, and cadence is indistinguishable from Harvey's. Y'all can look at the interviews in the show and see what you think about whether or not they're indistinguishable. And then it shows photos side by side, pixelated, I might add, that are of the actress playing Martha and Fiona Harvey in what she is wearing for her interview with Piers Morgan. It goes on to say, after being identified, the press in London began to contact Harvey, and the hatred towards Harvey on the internet, forums such as Reddit and TikTok, reach extreme levels, including death threats, such as this one on TikTok that was liked by 7,000 people. And it shows a statement that says, Fiona Harvey, count your days. There's no more context to that other than it appears to be from May 9th. There's no other context to that. And y'all know how I feel about people going real world with people and sending death threats. Don't. It goes on to say, since being identified as Martha only days after Netflix's release of Baby Reindeer, Harvey has been tormented. Harvey continues to suffer emotional distress, which has been manifested by objective symptomology. Harvey is physically weak. She has and continues to experience anxiety, nightmares, panic attacks, shame, depression, nervousness, stomach pains, loss of appetite and fear, extreme stress, and sickness, all directly caused by the lies told about her in Baby Reindeer. Harvey is fearful of leaving her home or checking the news. As a direct result of Baby Reindeer, Harvey has become extremely secluded and isolated in fear of the public, going days without leaving her home. At the same time, Netflix and Gadd have traveled the country. Which country? Have traveled the country promoting the show and accepting awards while receiving praise and applause for the series. Everything Gadd and Netflix wanted for this true story. Baby Reindeer is not a true story. It is a lie created by Gadd and distributed by Netflix. Well, Gadd's not the one being sued. Gadd confesses in Baby Reindeer that he has a deep psychological need for attention so intense that in the past, he willfully prostituted himself to another man to advance his career. I don't think that's what the show says. You're going to have to let me know if you agree with that or not. It goes on to say, and for, quote, a little peep at fame, it says from episode 6 at 8 minutes. In addition, Gadd confesses in Baby Reindeer that he is not worried that people think badly of him, but instead worried that they do not think about me at all. It goes on to say to get, quote, a peep at fame, and to get people to think about him, Gadd and Netflix defamed a middle-aged woman, Fiona Harvey, so completely that Harvey is even afraid to go outside. And then it cites Netflix's filing with the SEC, talking about their company growth. And then says to ensure that Netflix continued to meet its shareholders' growth expectations and satisfy its desperate need for compelling content, Netflix ruthlessly defamed Fiona Harvey. Oh boy. Defamation. It says Harvey has never been convicted of a crime. This is going to get interesting. Harvey has never been convicted of any crime and has never been to prison. Attached as Exhibit 1 is a certificate confirming that Harvey has no convictions, cautions, reprimands, or warnings. That claim is going to be difficult. The rest of everything set aside and the rest of this lawsuit taking shots at the writer of Baby Reindeer, if this is not true, it's going to be difficult for Netflix and potentially for Gadd if he is sued in England. But the series very much pins to the fact that at the end of all of this, spoilers, she is convicted of stalking the main character and author of Baby Reindeer, Gadd. If that claim is not true, that's going to be very interesting, right? And then we're going to have to get into what Netflix did to try to, A, make sure that this was within their storytelling liberties of making it based on real events, But at the beginning of the episode, it says, this is a true story. It does not say this is based on true events. So where does the this is a true story and the statement that she was easily found on social media, and if she's never been convicted, then where does that leave us? And isn't that a central point of the show? That they detail her pleading guilty to being a stalker. They talk about her being a previously convicted stalker. It's kind of a central plot point. It says, notwithstanding the central plot and the arc of the series is that Gad befriended Martha, a convicted stalker who returns to prison for stalking Gad. Emily, keep reading. It was much more succinct than you were. It says at episode 1, 3 minutes and 18 seconds, defendants claim that Martha, they're saying Netflix is claiming this even though it's in the show, Martha had received a 4.5-year prison sentence. Episode 1 ends with the following repeated refrain from Gad. I had a convicted stalker stalking me. I had a convicted stalker stalking me. I had a convicted stalker stalking me. Yes, the lawsuit says it 3 times. Episode 7, more spoilers. Episode 7 climaxes with a 2-minute-long courtroom scene in which Harvey dramatically pleads guilty from behind bars and is convicted of 3 charges of stalking Gad and harassment of his mother and father. In episode 7, defendants claim that Harvey was sentenced to 9 months in prison and a 5-year restraining order was issued the same day. In fact, Harvey has never pled guilty to any crime, and Harvey is not a convicted criminal. That's going to be an issue if true, right? Because then we're getting into the defamation per se realm. But didn't Netflix's lawyers check? That's pretty easy to check. It goes on to deny that Fiona Harvey ever sexually assaulted Gad and pulls up screenshots from that part of the show. It goes on to say that Harvey never stalked Gad. Baby Reindeer includes the repeated lie that Harvey stalked Gad. For approximately 2 minutes of episode 3, defendants claim that Harvey stalked Gad by sitting at a bus stop on the same street 30 yards away from his residence from morning till night. And then it rephrases the show and shows screenshots from the show. It says Harvey never waited outside Gad's residence. Defendants claim that Harvey waited outside the same street as Gad's residence every day for up to 15 to 16 hours a day. And that claim is a psychotic lie. That's bold. But also saying that it's a psychotic lie kind of tracks with her interview with Piers Morgan. But again, in that interview, she says at least a couple times, these things are so false, I didn't even know it was about me. But then she goes on to say, but she did see that it was about her. But she also seems to talk about the one-man show and knowing that that was about her and taking no action against that is going to come up in this. It goes on to say that Harvey never stalked a police officer. And it then quotes the show where the main character, Gad, goes to the police to report her and is told by the police that she's a very serious woman and she has even stalked a policeman. And then a screenshot from the show. It says, this is another lie. Harvey never stalked any police officer, and no police detective ever told Gad that Harvey stalked a policeman. This lie by defendants is reprehensible as it gives Gad's defamatory story the authority of official police statements. Within the context of a Netflix show. And it's clearly a Netflix show, not a documentary. But how much weight does the statement at the beginning of the show hold? It goes on to say Harvey never attacked Gad. There is a scene where she attacks him with a glass in the bar, and they put in screenshots from that scene of Gad being attacked in the bar. It goes on to say Netflix defames Harvey on its website. Netflix owns and controls the website Tudum, TUDUM.com. See, a lot of you know that I record the podcast with the members because the honored chat is Bay, and the members have let me know that the website is Tudum, the sound that Netflix makes. I had no idea. Thank you, chat. On May 16th, Netflix published an article on the site by Christopher Hudspeth titled, What is Baby Reindeer? The True Story and New Series Explained. It says the Netflix article states unequivocally that the series is a true story, and it's important to remember that this isn't just a story, it's true. It goes on to say Netflix defames Harvey in the House of Commons. On May 8th, 2024, Netflix executive Benjamin King appeared before the House of Commons Culture, Media, and Sport Committee on behalf of Netflix and in his capacity as Senior Director of Public Policy of Netflix. At the committee hearing, Mr. King was asked by John Nicholson, Member of Parliament, about the duty of care due to the woman now identified as Martha from Baby Reindeer. Mr. King responded to John Nicholson and stated the following in response, stating, quote, Baby Reindeer is obviously a true story of the horrific abuse that Richard Gadd suffered at the hands of a convicted stalker. We did take every reasonable precaution in disguising the real-life identities of the people whilst striking a balance with the veracity and authenticity of the story. It goes on to say Harvey is not a convicted stalker, and King's and Netflix's statement is a defamatory lie. This lawsuit would do well to be centered on this, just on this. Like, just on this. Because if it's not true, and you have executives from Netflix repeating it in clearly an official capacity, in an official way, and to the House of Commons, it's interesting because that can fall under defamation per se, accusing someone of being convicted of a crime or being a criminal. It goes on to say MP John Nicholson went Mr. King a follow-up. I'm reading directly from the lawsuit, and it's awkward because there are words missing from this sentence. A follow-up written inquiry requesting, quote, evidence for this serious claim, which Mr. King to Nicholas at the select committee. And then it puts in a copy of the letter to the senior director of public policy of UK and Ireland at Netflix, saying, Mr. King, at your appearance on 8th May before House of Commons Culture, Media and Sport Committee, I asked you about the Netflix series Baby Reindeer and specifically the duty of care to the woman now identified as Martha from your series. You told me the following, and then it quotes what's been quoted in the lawsuit. And then it says, journalists have thus far been unable to find a record of the conviction to which you referred. Can you provide me with the evidence for this serious claim which you made to me at the select committee? It says Netflix has not provided any evidence, and Netflix failed to do any due diligence. In their next section, Netflix told lies in Baby Reindeer that Harvey is a twice convicted criminal who sexually assaulted him, Gadd. Netflix and Gadd have never, to this day, contacted Harvey directly or indirectly to confirm Gadd's story. Defendants never obtained any confirmation from any governmental authority confirming that Harvey had been convicted of any crime. Defendants did not investigate Gadd's claim that Harvey sexually assaulted him or recklessly and or intentionally disregarded the truth of those defamatory statements, which goes towards defamation of a public figure, right? That they recklessly disregarded the truth. It goes on to say Netflix's algorithm. Baby Reindeer is on track to become one of Netflix's most popular series of all times. When asked about the success of Baby Reindeer, Netflix's CEO, Ted Sarandos, said that the series owed its popularity to Netflix's algorithm, stating, quote, Baby Reindeer got picked up in the algorithm and started getting more and more presented. I mean, it's their platform and their algorithm. Wouldn't it just present it either way? I wonder if they're using the algorithm to legally distance themselves from being the ones that are presenting this as the what everyone's watching. And I wonder if this suit will pull into the Netflix algorithm. We've seen past lawsuits against YouTube and Google saying that the algorithm was serving content that radicalized people. That went to the Supreme Court. And there was a lot of a distinction between what an algorithm did, what responsibility a platform had for algorithm serving certain videos or not, different than if there's a direct hand in saying, these are going to be the things that we serve to people. So this also goes towards whether or not Netflix can distance itself and be like, well, you know, what people see on the platform is what people see on the platform. It goes into the first cause of action being defamation, which we know, the statements being about her being a convicted stalker and serving prison time, and that she sexually assaulted Gadd, and that she attacked him, and that she stalked a policeman, and that a police detective told Gadd that she stalked a policeman, and that she waited outside his residence. I think of all of those statements, their strongest argument is that she is convicted and served a prison sentence, that she pled guilty. The sexual assault, again, is accusing someone of a crime that's going to fall under defamation per se in California. The violent attack is, again, accusing someone of a crime. So those are really the strongest of those. I don't know if they need the other causes of action in there at all, or the other statements in there. It goes on to say each of these statements was viewed more than 50 million times. In addition, Netflix made the statement that Harvey was a convicted stalker in a committee meeting at the House of Commons, which I think supports their claim here. And they said it on Tadum. It then goes into the second cause of action for intentional infliction of emotional distress, saying that Netflix's conduct was extreme and outrageous with the intent of causing or reckless disregarding of the probability of causing emotional distress to Harvey. The defendant's conduct was so extreme and outrageous that it falls under California's line as so extreme to exceed all bounds of that usually tolerated in a civilized community, which is common language for the IIED claim. The third cause of action is for negligence in putting this out as true and putting all those statements out as true. The fourth cause of action is for gross negligence for essentially the same, putting this out as true and disregarding the magnitude of potential harm to Harvey, how easily she would be identified, etc. The fifth cause of action is for rights of publicity under California common law. It's interesting because California looks at these things more because it, is the home of Hollywood. Rights of publicity are her rights to her essentially name, image, and likeness. And it says that defendants used Harvey's identity and likeness for commercial advantage without her consent, resulting in injury. It then gets into the sixth cause of action, violation for right of publicity under California Civil Code for essentially the same under two different laws for the identity and likeness because they did not use her name. And it alleges that she has suffered emotional distress due to that and damages. It then gets into exemplary damages, a jury demand, a preservation notice, and their prayer for relief, which is A, judgment against defendants for actual damages, the sum to be determined at trial, but it is believed to exceed $50 million, exclusive of legal fees, cost, and statutory interests. Judgment against defendants for compensatory damages in the maximum amount allowed by law in an amount to exceed $50 million. So we're at $100 million. Judgment against defendants for all profits from Baby Reindeer in the maximum amount allowed by law in an amount to exceed $50 million. So we're at $150 million. Judgment against defendants for the punitive damages in the maximum amount allowed under the law, but believed to be in excess of $20 million. So $170 million. Prejudgment interest, attorney's fees, and such other general relief. So that is the $170 million lawsuit against Netflix over the show Baby Reindeer, brought from Fiona Harvey, who has identified herself and says she was identified by the internet as the real life Martha. The shade and disrespect thrown at the writer of the show aside, accusing someone of being a convicted criminal is something that is fairly easy to check. There are records, especially if somebody went to prison, and that may pose some difficulty. We'll see if it poses difficulty for Netflix or for GAD. It's just going to depend on how intricately Netflix was involved with the production of Baby Reindeer or whether it was produced elsewhere and then just distributed by Netflix. We will see. But I want to know your thoughts on this. So if you're listening on the audio, you're always welcome to pop over to YouTube and let me know. We'll be talking about this in our members sections as well. It's a very interesting lawsuit. And would we even be here if the beginning said this is based on true events? And is Netflix going to be protected based on the names, likeness, and identities have been changed to protect those in the story? I don't know. I don't know if that will be enough. I don't see this lawsuit going away anytime soon. And we're going to start exploring the law in the time, really, of the internet sleuths. If this was released a couple decades ago, or even a decade ago, would the real identity of Martha be known worldwide in the matter of days? Or is that something that needs to be considered in a different way as stories are being released? And where are the boundaries of people sharing their experiences? And where are the boundaries of fictionalizing real events and portraying them as true? I'm very interested to see how this played out. Honestly, I was surprised. All of the allegations and everything I've looked at seems to indicate that there is no record of Fiona Harvey being convicted of anything, including stalking. Because as I was watching through the series and got to the end of it, I was like, oh, well, at least at the end of it, he went to the police, he stood up for himself, and she was convicted. It put a little bit of justice around what Gad portrayed to have happened to him in the show. But if that's not true, does it change everything? You let me know what you think. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. Thank you for hanging in for this episode, talking a little bit about TV and the rest of it. A huge thank you to today's sponsor, Shopify. Not only does Shopify run the Law Nerd shop, but also so many of your favorites across the internet, whether you're buying your favorite nail polish or picking up something from Brooklinen or Allbirds. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from just getting started to your first sale to moving past 1 million orders. Shopify is there to help you grow every step of the way. And did you know that Shopify actually has little shopping bag Shopify awards? They're kind of like the YouTube creator play buttons. They're super cute. I cannot wait to earn one. So no matter what you're selling, Shopify helps you turn shoppers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. It's no wonder Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. Plus, if you ever get stuck, Shopify's award-winning customer service is there to help, because businesses that grow with Shopify. So no matter what you are looking to sell online or in person, give Shopify a try today. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/lawnerd. Remember, that's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/lawnerd now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. And you'll start hearing this sound soon. Let's get back to today's episode. And we will get into, well, more pop culture, because there's lots going on in the pop culture sphere aside from criminal trials. And at some point, we're just going to need to do a food court episode. So stay tuned in the Law Nerd app for all of that. And with that, Law Nerd, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. Thank you for hanging out for a podcast. I probably just repeated myself on the outro. That's fine. That's fine. Raise your Law Nerd tumbler with me. May your Wi-Fi be strong. Mine was a little glitchy at the beginning of this recording. Fingers crossed it was fine. May your Wi-Fi be strong. May your toilet paper be plentiful, or your bidet be delightful. Either way. May your family be well. May the odds be ever in your favor. I will talk to you in the next one. Bye. You can stay up to date with everything I'm covering on our free iOS and Android app at lawnerdapp.com, or search your app store for Law Nerd. And you can also follow me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. Remember, I stream on YouTube on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I recap all of that for you in quick bits on Monday. And of course, the Emily Show drops on Wednesdays. Thanks for being a Law Nerd.